It had been 6 years since Ty West made a feature film, even longer since it was in the horror genre, but finally, in 2022, a movie was released into the world and a star in Mia Goth was born. But little did we, the audience, know a sequel had also been filmed and was going to be released within the same year, with even a third film to come out a few years later. This collection of movies took the genre by storm and had audiences craving more. But what happens when you start off with a bang? Can follow-up films be even better? We're here to find out as we set course for this adventure on the impossible quest to talk about every franchise ever! Episode 2, The X Trilogy. Hello and welcome to Every Franchise Ever, a video-audio podcast where I, Bryan Starr, am trying to watch, review, and rank the movies of every franchise ever. Just a few days later, we're already on episode 2, and I'm just so happy to be here. I can't believe we're actually doing it. For everyone who reached out and was excited about the project, that truly means the world to me. So, in episode 1, we talked about Creepshow. What did you think? Did the ranking match up with yours? How did I do? Definitely let me know in the comments, whether you're on Spotify or YouTube. And yes, I'm currently working on trying to get to more platforms. I'm just so busy with this, I don't have the time. But I'm going to work on it, especially for those that are, my Apple Podcast girlies. By the way, if you don't have time to listen to the entire episode and sort of just want to know how I rank the films that I'm talking about, I am turning this also into, simultaneously, a short form style of podcast. It's more just like short form content where on my TikTok and Instagram, I'm just kind of solely focusing on the rankings. It's going to be completely different backgrounds and of course filmed for vertical. But yeah, as long as I can keep up with it, those videos will be posted in between these full episodes. It's a lot, but I think it's going to be cool. I think people are going to get a kick out of it. And there's only one way to find out, right? But that's enough shameless plugging. It's time to talk about a modern horror trilogy that people seem to absolutely love or hate. But wherever you land, you have to admit, Mia Goth is a star! So let's get to it and begin our conversation about X, Pearl, and Maxine.
Beware, there will be spoilers. If you haven't seen the movie yet, what are you doing here? Oh well, you've been warned.
One thing that I love about Ty West is not only is he the director, but he's also the writer, producer, and editor for basically all of his projects, which essentially means he gets to see the story from start, in his head, to finish, all the way to the end product. That's super rare. Especially, once studios start getting involved, right? I'm a big fan of writer-directors. I'm also a big fan of editing. I love to edit, even though it's tough, but that's where you get to put the story together. If you have a terrible shoot, you could probably save it in the edit sometimes, not all the time. I would love for that to happen more. I hear of a few directors here and there that are doing that. They also like to be behind the camera. I think that's great. So, yeah, let's talk about X. And you know what? Immediately, I'm locked in with that opening shot. It starts inside the barn, and you see the farmhouse, and it also kind of looks like it's like in a 4:3 format, and then the camera pushes out, and it opens up. And not only are you revealing the true ratio of the film, but you're also revealing that something has gone terribly wrong, because now we're seeing cop cars outside of the house. To start a movie off like that, sold. So essentially what we're looking at is the aftermath of something gone terribly wrong at this random farmhouse. And now it's time to find out what happens. And so let's rewind. And this is when we are introduced to our cast of characters, which includes our star, Mia Goth, who is playing Maxine. These group of friends are trying to make a porno, hence the title of the film, being a direct rating of the movie they're trying to make. And if anyone knows anything about low budget filmmaking, you know it's all about location, location, location. And so this group has rented out a back house of the farm from this elderly couple, Howard and his wife, Pearl. Howard is immediately not a fan of the group, but they're already there. They're paying customers. So what can you do about it? Just let them stay. For the next 20 or so minutes of the film, the group is, making their movie, and Maxine's kind of off on her own. And I think at this point she's swimming in the lake, skinny dipping in the lake. And first off, she should not be in that lake, and we're going to get to that in a second. But second off, someone is watching her, and we see that it's the elderly woman, Pearl. Pearl is out spying on Maxine, and it gets even weirder because Maxine is invited into the main farmhouse by Pearl, where it's pretty clear that Pearl is interested in Maxine for a lot of reasons that we're not entirely sure about just yet. Something is definitely unsettling, and it doesn't help at all when Howard gets home and Maxine is ushered out back, and Pearl tells her, not to say anything. So, yeah, things are a little bit weird so far, but nothing crazy. I don't need to tell you every character. We don't need to get super deep into that, but this kind of sets up what's about to happen. But yeah, RJ, he is the videographer for this porno and brings his girlfriend, who is played by Jenna Ortega, for whatever reason you forgot or if you didn't know. And Jenna is running sound for this, but she gets a little interested in what they're filming and decides she wants to be in the movie as well. And RJ did not sign up for that. He did not want to see that, and he did. He had to see it. He had to film it. And obviously that scarred him. And so while everyone is asleep that night, RJ decides, screw them, I'm going home. And he gets in his van to leave, and the lights turn on, and Pearl standing out front. This is the middle of the night, right? And it's pretty unsettling. She's just standing there. She's not really doing anything. RJ tries to go and talk to her and tell her to move, and this just leads to Pearl decapitating him. Things are getting insane, and if you knew nothing about this movie going into it, I bet at this point you're freaking out. Obviously, we knew something was wrong, but for her to just straight up murder the guy, well, that's crazy. A few people from the group realize that RJ is missing. One of them gets killed in the barn by Pearl, and then Jenna Ortega's character finds Howard in the farmhouse and lets him know what's going on. However, Howard is freaking out because Pearl is missing, and so they need to go find her. And Howard tells Jenna Ortega to go into the basement to find a flashlight, and it is in that basement when we realize Howard might be in on it, because there is a corpse tied up from the ceiling, and that's when Jenna Ortega gets locked in the basement. So yeah, Howard definitely knows what's going on. And yep, things are getting even more real. At this point, everyone is either locked up, dead, or about to be dead, except for Maxine, who is still sleeping, except, there's a visitor. It's Pearl. And she's naked and getting in bed with you. So that happens. Maxine wakes up and freaks out. And a few things happen. For instance, Pearl pushes someone into the lake. And that's the same lake that Maxine should not have been swimming in earlier. And that's because there's a huge killer alligator that has basically been trained to eat anybody who gets thrown in, and that's exactly what happens. So we finally get to Jenna Ortega is being freed from the basement by Maxine, and then immediately gets shot by Howard, who coincidentally, and just, great timing, has a heart attack while moving her body, and he just dies on the spot. Pretty easy, but you know what? He was old, and he was talking about having heart issues anyways, so fine. All right, we got rid of him, but now it's just Maxine and Pearl. All right, Maxine has somehow found a gun, tries to shoot Pearl. It's not working. Pearl has the shotgun, the same gun that killed Jenna Ortega. Pearl goes to shoot, and the kickback is so bad that Pearl flies off the porch onto the ground, breaks her hip, and she has fallen and can't get up. I'm sorry, I had to. That's what happened. She's an elderly person who fell and can't get up. But it's great for Maxine because she sees the opportunity to get out of there right after she takes Howard's truck and runs over Pearl's head. And just to kind of wrap up, that's pretty much the movie, but just to wrap things up, throughout the entire movie, especially at the very beginning, at the very end, and throughout, we see a televangelist has been playing on TV that's in the farmhouse. At one point, Howard is even watching it. But a nice, simple reveal at the end, the very end, it turns out that Maxine is the daughter of the televangelist, who is essentially preaching about losing her to the sins of the world. And even though that really doesn't have anything to do with our next film, Pearl, it basically has everything to do with the third of the trilogy, Maxine. Now, when it comes to my thoughts about the movie, I will admit I missed it in theaters. I didn't really have any interest until I heard a lot of positive things. And so one night in a hotel, it came on HBO. I saw it from the very beginning, and I could barely get 30 or 40 minutes into it. Nothing was happening. I kept waiting for it to be amazing. I was also kind of getting a little sleepy, and so I definitely blame that as well. But my first interaction with X was not positive. It's not that I hated it. I just was like, okay, what are we doing here? It was just bad timing, bad experience on my part. And so I'm not blaming the movie for being slow. I'm blaming my timing of experiencing that movie for sure. Our sequel in the trilogy is actually a prequel. And it turns out they filmed the movies back to back, and when the audience heard that Pearl was being released, the movie was already in post-production, which I just love. I love that sort of secrecy when it comes to filmmaking, especially in the day and age where everyone and their mom on TikTok is trying to be the first person to tell you something about a movie. For that to be kept hidden, kept secret, that's awesome. I love that. I'm here for that. Gosh, I hate hearing about stuff years before it actually happens. So I'm sure that was awesome for people who got to experience that in real time. X was set in prime time slasher era 70s. Pearl is set in the early 1900s during World War I, the Great War, with the art direction giving itself a Wizard of Oz Technicolor vibe, truly completely different than the first film. Pearl, still played by Mia Goth, is the main focal point for our prequel. Certainly not an old lady anymore, but instead a young, ambitious girl dreaming of being a star. But she has to live on the farmland that her parents own. This is the same farmland from X. Her dad is bound to a wheelchair, and so Pearl has a lot of chores. And even though she has these big dreams, she can't really do anything about it, especially because her German mother is very strict. And by the way, a nice piece of trivia that I read and just fully loved is the fact that the person who played the German mother was the intimacy coordinator on X. For whatever reason, she was offered the role, and this is kind of, back-to-back shooting these movies, and so she quickly learned German and was so successful at it that she fooled people on the crew, and that's amazing. She did an incredible job. I fully bought it, so yeah, I love that little piece of trivia. Again, Pearl has these dreams of being a star, being a dancer, being in film, and her mother is fully against it. Yet, despite her wishes, still Pearl seeks the arts and stumbles on a projectionist played by David Corenswet, who I did not know was in this movie because I only knew him from Twisters and Superman. So yeah, the projectionist is fond of Pearl and really isn't helping the mom's restrictions because he keeps kind of buying in and kind of giving her assurance that she should follow her dreams because she is meant to be a star. However, while all of this is happening, we see we see a few glimpses that something is slightly off with Pearl. We all know the Scarecrow scene. Don't think I really got to get into that, but there's even some moments where she turns on the animals that she's supposed to be taking care of. And if you know anything about psychopaths or killers, usually harming animals is kind of the first sign that, maybe get some help. First sign of trouble for sure. Things escalate quickly when Pearl continues talking about her, pursuing her dreams, and her mother berates her to the point where Pearl pushes her mother against the wall. A candle lands, and her mother just lights up in flames. And Pearl, to douse the flames, Pearl throws boiling water onto her. So it's just an absolute disaster. We almost go 0 to 10 very quickly. Her poor dad, who can't do anything about it, bound to the wheelchair, has to watch all of this happen and be left behind because after Pearl throws her mom into the basement, she runs to the projectionist and sleeps with him and, is just living the dream, her dream. And, yeah, holy cow, it's a little messed. And of course, it's going to get crazier because the projectionist takes Pearl back home, and I think she's ready to run away with him, and so he's kind of waiting around for her to take care of some things. But notices something happens in the dining room, and notices Pearl is a little off, and Pearl notices that he notices, and so yeah, she goes off the rails and starts yelling at him as the projectionist is trying to get away. And she won't have that. She won't let him get away. And so she takes a pitchfork from the barn and stabs him and then throws his car into the pond. And that's where his body goes as well. And guess who's still in the pond? Or guess who was there from the beginning? The big alligator that loves eating bodies. And you better believe that's what he's doing on this one. Finally, it's time for Pearl to follow her dreams after she, of course, smothers her dad to death with a pillow. But yeah, it's time for an audition that she was told about by her sister-in-law. I forget if I mentioned, but Pearl is married. She's married to a man named Howard, and he's off fighting in the war. So she is with her sister-in-law at this audition, because this is her opportunity to be a star. And so she goes in front of the talent scouts and just gives a wonderful American performance, except it's not exactly what the scouts are looking for. And it kind of boils down to she's not a blonde, which sucks. And it makes her not love blondes from here on out, which is kind of a callback to X when Pearl mentions something about how much she hates blondes, which is what Maxine was in that first film. So this does not go well. She freaks out, basically needs to be dragged out. And so we get back to the farmhouse because the sister-in-law decides to console her. But it doesn't help, especially when we find out that it's very possible that the sister-in-law got the acting job. But Pearl goes into this incredible, lengthy, and just brilliant monologue. And I'm kind of more just really let's take a step out of the story and just, holy cow, Mia Goth. This monologue is insane. It's so well done. And it's one of those moments where I just kept leaning into the screen, just eating every word up. But in this monologue, Pearl is admitting to killing, admitting to adultery, admitting to killing animals, and the jealousy that she has about everybody, especially her blonde sister-in-law. So at this point, the sister-in-law is thinking, got to get out of there. Gotta run. And hey, guess what? Pearl, again, not having it, chases her down and kills her with an axe. And that's where we get that kind of iconic axe poster scene, which is great. I mean, it's just the setting, the color, it's so good. So at this point, every character we've been introduced to has been killed by Pearl, except one remaining person, and that is her husband, Howard, who has finally returned from war. And what does he see when he walks in but some decomposing corpses and a rotting meal, as if it's Thanksgiving, 50 years ago, that is still sitting there. It's a disaster, and he's horrified. And who's standing there waiting but Pearl? And she's so happy to see him. And she just puts on this big smile, and the smile continues. And I wrote it down. It's like almost 2 full minutes where Mia Goth is holding this smile, and the credits are rolling, and you can see like tears falling, and Mia Goth's face is just deteriorating from holding that pose. And again, even though this is the credits, this is another moment where I'm just like, oh my, Mia Goth is a star. The movie is super solid, but it was that final credit sequence and the monologue that just took it over the edge for me. This whole movie, Pearl is screaming about being a star, and I don't know if she is, and I don't think she ever is, right? We see what happens with her life, but Mia Goth, my goodness, clearly the star, and this movie elevates that for sure. In a rare occurrence, the follow-up film to the first is better. This movie is better than X. I am hooked. I love this movie. And clearly I'm on a high after watching this. So I was so happy to immediately dive in to the third and final film, which is actually a direct sequel to X. And it's simply titled after our main character, Maxine. X and Pearl both take place on the same farmland, but finally, we are in 1980s Los Angeles, and with the first 2 films having to do with stardom and filmmaking in some aspects, it's nice to finally be where it all happens in a more kind of modern-ish setting, especially compared to the other 2 films. This is set during the Night Stalker murders. It's a fictional story, but it's set during a very real thing that people had to experience. Maxine has always wanted to be a star, and apparently has been very successful in the adult film business after what happens, I believe, 6 years prior at the farmhouse. And she's trying to get into real Hollywood, true Hollywood, actually make Hollywood movies and, keep her clothes on, I guess. We get this incredible audition for a big Hollywood film, and she kills it. And again, I'm kind of going to take a step out of the movie and talk about Mia Goth for the billionth time. She kills it, and it's at this point when I'm watching it, and I'm like, oh, here we go. It's just going to get better from here, because this is starting off with an absolute brilliant piece of acting. So Mia Goth does the audition, and some things happen, but something that kind of is big is that she almost gets robbed, but she takes care of the guy very easily, and we get a great sense that Pearl can take care of herself, despite the warnings that there is a Death Stalker around, but especially after her experience of what she went through in the movie X, she can take care of herself. Which, unfortunately, for her, those events in the movie X, they're not gone. They're still there because she gets some footage from the movie that they were making in X, and it has somehow showed up to where she lives in a VHS. Another big thing that happens is apparently 2 of her friends who have mentioned going to a party in the Hollywood Hills, they've been killed. And it's by some mysterious cult that is in a house somewhere. We don't know everything, but something is going down, and it probably has to do with the Night Stalker. And this leads to a couple of detectives showing up and being very suspicious about Maxine. All at the same time, Maxine did book that big Hollywood job. And she's also being stalked by a private investigator brilliantly played by Kevin Bacon. He almost steals the show multiple times. And Kevin Bacon is working for the person who has the footage from this movie that they were making in X. So a lot of things are happening, and Maxine's going to figure it out because she's friends with some powerful people, including her agent, played by Giancarlo Esposito, who captures Kevin Bacon, locks him inside a car, and gets it crushed in a junkyard. It's a fantastic scene. The blocking, the way that they're standing there, the lighting, it's just awesome. Really, really cool scene. So that's one problem taken care of. But Maxine realizes that all of her friends who died recently were invited to this house in the Hollywood Hills, and Kevin Bacon gives her the address and says, you should probably go because that's who has your footage. And that's exactly what she does. No fear. She heads to the house, and we get some crazy reveals. This is where the Death Stalker is. And that person in charge of it all is Maxine's dad, the televangelist from the first film, who has become obsessed with trying to expose Hollywood for being the center of sin and corruption by killing people in the industry, I guess. But all Daddy wants to do is make sure that his daughter is saved, and so instead of having a normal conversation like typical people usually do, he decides to perform an exorcism on her out back. But guess what? Guess who arrived to shake things up? It's the detectives who have been following Maxine the entire time. And a whole massive gunfight happens, and a couple of things go down. A lot of people being shot. Maxine gets free, but also her dad flees further up into the Hollywood Hills, basically right around the Hollywood sign. And so Maxine chases him down. And this is how everything ends. The detectives also help chase down. They get shot. They get killed. It's pretty awesome. But here's how it goes. Here's how it ends. We end with Maxine having her father at gunpoint. And she has this vision. She has this vision that she is going to have the future success she deserves as an actress. Because it turns out her father did help her by giving her divine intervention to see that she is, in fact, a star. And that's when she pulls the trigger and kills her dad. Now, as much as I love the setting of this film and how perfectly 80s LA it feels, I do feel like there's nothing super special outside a few moments from Mia Goth. I don't think the reveal with the dad was as big as it intended to be because I called it from the beginning, and I don't think I'm special for that. It was pretty easy. It made sense. I feel like the detectives weren't helping move the story along. If anything, they were just kind of there just to cause chaos in that third act. And I feel like Maxine has too much plot armor, seemingly unpunished by all this death that she has found herself surrounded by. In the end, though, I think Maxine is good, but I do wonder if slightly rewritten so that it doesn't have to be directly connected to previous films, could it have been stronger by itself? Keep the Night Stalker, keep the cult, keep even the religious aspect of it. However, I am a fan of this entire trilogy. I love that each movie is sort of set at different times, different eras of film, of cinema, whether it's the creation of movies or the creation of accessible equipment for anyone to just go off and make their own film, to the big studio era of the 80s where we literally just get to play around and run around the Universal lots, where I have been myself. I felt like I was in Maxine. I'm also in love with the art direction, the vision of each film. X clearly looking like films from the 70s and 80s. Pearl obviously looking like films of the 30s. And 1980s LA perfectly portrayed, neon lights and all. Having these movies set in 3 different times, obviously we're going to have different looks, but the fact that they went all in on it down to every last detail, I think it's brilliant. It's a lot of fun. And again, I'm just blown away by Mia Goth. She is the star. She is a star, and I really hope we see even more from her, especially in this horror genre. And there you have it. That is the quick rundown of each movie in this trilogy. But now it's time. There's only one place we can go. It's certainly one of my favorite segments of the podcast. Let's get to the ranking. Now, unlike Creepshow, this is going to be a simple 3-movie ranking because there's no extra segments for me to also rank. So, yeah, that's going to happen anyways. There's plenty of trilogies that we'll talk about in the future. But yeah, let's get to it. I'm so eager to see what other people have to say about this. In fact, I've already seen a few people say they like certain movies over the others. And so please let me know in the comments, what are you thinking? But for me, in third place is Maxine. Like I said, I had fun with it. It's also just kind of there and maybe even relies too much on the previous films. I don't think it's bad. I just don't think it's great. So, second place, we have X, and even though I gave up on it during my initial watch, I'm happy that I revisited it to actually come out and enjoy it. Yes, it is a slow burn to get to the good part and the chaos, but I don't think that's bad. I don't think it's a waste of my time, especially now that I've seen the full picture. I've seen the vision. So, second place, we have X. And of course, I talked so highly of it. In first place, we have Pearl, which is just a step above the rest. Maybe it's completely different era of time. Maybe it's the performances that we really don't get in any of the other films. But I do believe from start to finish, this movie rocks. And I really can't complain about any part of it, except maybe the Scarecrow scene. We gotta chill with the Scarecrow scene, okay? And so there you go, locked in the official ranking of the X trilogy. We're looking at Pearl, X, and then Maxine. And this brings us to the end of episode 2. And I am just so happy to see this podcast moving along. I can't believe that we're here. I can't believe that I'm actually doing it. I've had this idea for quite some time. I told people about this a couple of months ago. And then about a month ago, I told people just a solid start date, and I did it. And it happened, and I'm here doing it again, and we'll continue to do it 12 more times in this month, and hopefully more past that. And so I'm so excited, and thank you. Now, I'm not sure where you're watching or listening, but you can actually do both on Spotify. And of course, you can watch these full episodes on YouTube as well. I'm making sure that the audio gets elsewhere, especially Apple Music, because that's what I do. I use Apple Podcasts. I'll use Spotify for other things. But I definitely want to make sure that this gets out to more and more people, and I'm working on that very soon. Also, I would love to do this for years to come. I don't know if you've looked into how many franchises there are, but I could do this for a couple of decades, and I would be tickled to do so. And I think the only way that that's possible is through the help from supporters on my Patreon and Ko-fi. Again, any member who is supporting financially gets to leave franchise suggestions for future episodes. You'll be a part of special polls that basically lock in those future episodes. And of course, everyone gets a shout out at the end of the podcast. And it's only $3 a month. I'm sure you could probably pay annually. It's a quick little thing. And that would be amazing. I would love to be supported by the community and not have to worry about algorithms getting me to you. And so there's that. And I hate to do it, but I think it's the only way that this survives. However, I will say, just by you listening and sharing is huge support. I am insanely thankful. This video is going to be like 40 plus minutes. And the fact that people are taking that much time out of their day to listen to me talk about some movies and put them in a specific order, that's amazing. It's incredible. I'm only, this is only episode 2, and I've already heard from a few people who have done that, and that makes me continue to go until I just can't anymore. So again, a billion times, thank you for being here. But yeah, I just want to say thanks. I'm excited, and soon episode 3 is going to come out in a couple of days. And that's where we get to move on to our next group of horror films and continue to lock in another definitive movie ranking with the Ring franchise. But until then, I've been Bryan Starr. Thank you for joining me on this journey as we do the impossible, talking about every franchise ever.